Now, it should have been the day that it was setting out its stall on the corporation being value for money, that's trusted and it's accountable. Do you think the Director General stood up to scrutiny today?
Look, Tim Davie is he's good in these circumstances in terms of handling questions from the press. He's a pretty confident performer. And that goes way back to 2012, in fact, when he was parachuted in as an emergency Director General amid the Jimmy Savile crisis. And it was during that period that he helped steady the ship and stabilize what was an incredibly difficult moment for the BBC. I remember him being questioned by MPs in the heat of that scandal, and they were generally reasonably impressed by his performance. So, yeah, he's got experience of dealing with really problematic crises. I think, again, we saw reasonably confident display. The BBC had clearly done a lot of work to establish this timeline. But as I say, the full facts are not at our fingers. And I think it's only with time that we'll be able to properly reflect on how he has handled this situation. What we can say confidently is that he didn't know about the allegations against this presenter until last week, and that probably works in his favour.
Was his legacy meant to be accountability? And if you're looking at how BBC News is reporting this, do you think that it's trying to make huge efforts to be more transparent in that reporting?
I think there are a couple of things in play for the BBC here. One is quite recent. So the BBC gave wall-to-wall coverage of the Philip Schofield issue. It was leading bulletins. They were doing live blogs on it. And I think if it does not provide coverage that is commensurate with the Philip Schofield coverage, then it opens itself up to questions about holding other broadcasters to standards that it's not holding itself to. And the second thing is the Jimmy Savile scandal. And, I think that lingers long in the memory of BBC employees and BBC journalists. And they have a record of holding their own leaders to account. And I think we still see the echoes of that in some of the reporting that we're seeing from the BBC today. I think the BBC, look, I was listening to the BBC radio coverage and TV output all day yesterday. There was members of the public commenting on this story. And I think there's a real risk that mistakes could be made. The presenter could be identified, the victim or the young person involved in this case could be identified. So the BBC does have to tread carefully, I think, going forward.
Okay, let's talk about The Sun. What do you think it means for The Sun? Their journalistic rigour really being brought into question over this, isn't it? What steps will they have taken, do you think, to check that the story that the parents came to them with was true?
It's very difficult to say. All we have, or certainly all I have, is the Sun's own reporting on this. There are a few clues, I think, in its reporting. It has said more than once that the mother of this individual has signed a sworn affidavit. So there is some sort of, official testimony, potentially legal in nature, that the Sun could fall back on if there were legal proceedings. The second thing that is made clear is that the mother has not requested payment for telling her story. It's been at pains to point that out in its reporting. So that suggests that there's no financial benefit in the individuals blowing the whistle on this issue. But the Sun is being much more coy about the evidence that it does have or has seen. At no point in its reporting has it said that it has seen bank records, texts, or pictures. It suggests that it may have had sight of some of the dossier that the family has handed to the BBC over the weekend. But we don't know the precise evidence that the Sun has. And I think the statement by the young person's lawyer to BBC News on Monday raises serious questions about the Sun's reporting. And that statement to BBC News said that the young person involved issued a categorical denial to the Sun before it published its first story on Friday. The Sun did not carry that denial in its reporting.